Yo. Tis I, Hellhound, your host for all things macabre. And it's recently come to my attention, I just realized that I haven't reviewed the horror classic Night of the Living Dead yet. How did I miss this one? Come on, Night of the Living Dead. She should have been one of the first ones I ever did. Came out in 1968, and is black and white, and directed by horror master George A. Romero, who sadly passed away a short time ago. So, in honor of George A. Romero's passing, let's go ahead and get into Night of the Living Dead. This cover's kind of boring, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of basic. I really prefer this cover a lot better. I mean, come on, look, that's so much cooler. Don't you agree? I actually have 5 different versions of this movie on VHS. This is actually one of the more recent, one of the newer VHS releases, but I just love this cover. I think it's awesome. That's a really cool artwork. I wouldn't mind having a poster of that. So, yeah, it's way more, well done than this. It's just kind of boring. But anyway, let's get right in. What is Night of the Living Dead about? Like you don't already know. Yeah, anyway, Barbara, played by Judith O'Dea, and, her brother Johnny are attacked in a cemetery. I guess they're visiting their dad's grave, and they're attacked by a strange man who he kind of looks more like a vampire than a zombie. But anyway, Johnny's killed, and Barbara is chased all the way to this house, like kind of in the woods, and it's on the countryside. And she's rescued by Ben, played by Dwayne Jones, who saves her from carnivorous monsters and takes her inside the house, where they board up the windows and the doors. They seal up everything so the zombies can't get inside. So Ben and Barbara are sharing the house with the Cooper family, Harry, Helen, and their daughter Karen, who was recently bitten by one of the reanimated dead. So she's fallen ill, and obviously she's slowly becoming one of them, which is pretty obvious. And there's also Tom and Judy, I think their names are, a young teenage couple who are also staying in the house, seeking refuge from the carnivorous living dead outside. So yeah, basically they're just like in a house, hiding, a boarded up house, hiding from the zombies that are outside in the night. Night falls, and then zombies are slowly creeping into the house, trying to make their way in because they're hungry for human flesh. This is before zombies ate brains. That was introduced in Return of the Living Dead from 1985, which is my favorite zombie movie, and one of my top favorite movies of all time. However, this one's more, compared to that, this is more of a straight-up horror movie. It's not really a horror comedy. It's not really, like, extremely fun and entertaining. It's more serious and more scary and suspenseful, and very well done. I think it's kind of underrated when you look at it with some of George A. Romero's other Dead films, which I'll get to in a second. Yeah, anyway, Barbara, she becomes kind of hysterical. She goes in and out of shock throughout the night. She doesn't really do much. Just kind of sits on the couch and, like, kind of whines and, and screams about what just happened. The real main character is Ben. He clearly takes the lead after he's introduced. And I think it was one of the first ever starring roles for an African-American man in a horror movie. If I think I have that correct. Yeah, He's a black guy. He's pretty much the main character, and I think I heard that that was one of the first times that this happened. I don't know, I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like it would be, because I don't know. I feel like there could have been others that came before, but I think I read that somewhere, so I don't know how accurate that is or not. So don't quote me on it. But anyway, he's a really great character. I like Dwayne Jones' acting. He's really believable. He was like one of the original, like, kind of heroic, like, badass characters who fought against evil, like, years before, like, Ash Williams and Reggie Bannister and, Nada from They Live and Dennis Hopper's character from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, like, years before all that. He was one of the very first to have that kind of virtuous defender of evil roles, and he's really realistic about it, too. He's got his shotgun and blowing away the dead. He's constantly fighting with Harry Cooper, the husband in that of that family that are staying downstairs, and, like, that guy's just a real jerk. He kind of becomes takes on an antagonistic role later on, too. But anyway, they hear on the news that the murders that are happening all across the country, and recent dead rising from the moor. It's not like dead zombies coming out of the cemetery, although there was, the zombie at the beginning of the cemetery. those it's only like people who are recently killed because after they rotted too much, they can't come back. According to this movie, I think it might have been caused by radiation fallout from a fallen space probe. That's what one of the scientists determines over the radio. They're constantly watching the news. You know, they're all huddled together in the boarded up house, and as the zombies move in on them, getting closer and closer. And so yeah, it's possible that the space probe is what reanimated these dead monsters who are starving for meat of the living. So yeah, that's one possibility. They never really go into a clear explanation. They just say that that's like one possible theory. They kind of hint at it. They don't really directly say that's exactly what's responsible. That was just one person's theory, which I think is kind of cool. It's kind of a cool angle. We don't really know for sure 100% what caused this dead to reanimate. And it continues to go down that route with the sequels, which again I'll get to in a minute. Yeah, I love black and white movies. I love classic horror. This came out in 1968, which was a good while after color was introduced, but I think it had a really low budget. The zombies aren't really well done either. I think that I think they said that they were their more recent dead that rose from the morgue instead of the graveyards because they wanted to save money on like makeup effects. But it's still believable though. You still believe that these people are dead and coming after you. They're not they're nothing compared to zombies like the ones in Return of the Living Dead or Dead Alive or something like that where the makeup's really well done and they're all rotted and decomposed and stuff. I prefer zombies like that where they actually really look dead. But again, this movie, they're still really believable despite just looking like ordinary humans. Just they got a bunch of extras and put like blood around their mouths and just made them walk. The zombies in this walk really slowly. They're almost like a disease. It's like a plague. Like these all really move really slow and eerily. Aside from the zombie the attacking zombie at the beginning who tried to get Barbara in her car. And attacked her brother, who that one moved really fast and was really vicious and like rapid in his movements. The rest of the zombies are really slow and like I honestly feel like if I was one of them, I could just leave the house, like probably run circles around one of the zombies and probably even take a quick piss on it before running away and getting getting free, getting in the clear. Like I feel like these zombies can never catch me. So. However, I think they're a little more, like, I don't know, when compared to fast, more intelligent zombies, I think these are, like, a little creepier, because they move so slow, and, like, it just, they're just like as I said, just like a plague upon mankind. It's just like, you go out, it's just a nightmare seeing all the dead people walking slowly towards you. It's a little more, creepier that way. However, I would definitely rather take my chances in this type of zombie environment than the one, like, where they're really fast, and they can actually talk, and they can outsmart you, and then eat you. So, but yeah, this is like one of this movie pretty much, zombies existed way before this movie, and they were usually associated with voodoo before that, and like they took place in like places like Haiti and stuff like that. But this one's really what kind of started the new, well, not new, but you know what I mean. This one was very inspirational for zombie films. It's what started this type of zombie film. This movie was a huge influence. Like every zombie film that came after it, it's a huge, important part of horror history. It's very integral to the legacy of scary movies. And as I said, yeah, it's really what made zombie movies what they are today. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, it's excellent. It's very well done. A lot of people prefer Dawn of the Dead, and I kind of do too to some extent. But I feel like this one's feels a little more like a horror movie. It takes place at night. It has really dark settings. Like has locations like the graveyard, the creepy old house, and like so many scenes are really dark and. The zombies are just like so much scarier. You can barely see them. They come out of the shadows. I think this one's a little creepier. So I definitely prefer that aspect. But it's really tough to choose between this one and Dawn of the Dead. It's really hard. As I said, the lead character, Ben, is really cool. I like him a lot. Even Barbara, like even though she's hysterical most of the movie and constantly screaming and being frightened, I felt for her. And then the guy who plays Harry, the husband, he does a good job playing an asshole. And then but I really felt for him and his wife having to deal with their daughter becoming one of the undead. That was a really cool scene too. No one dare give away what happens. It was really cool, really gruesome. There's also a lot of over-the-top gore in this movie. There's a part where they try to get away and they go to a gas station. These two people, the young couple, Tom and Judy, they get ripped apart by zombies. You can see their intestines being ripped out, and their guts, and like their rib cages, and you see their organs being eaten. It's like, wow, that was pretty gruesome, pretty gory for back then, for 1968. I mean, we had Blood Feast that came out 5 years later in 1963, and that was pretty bloody. But man, this movie is like probably one of the more like mainstream type of movies. I think Blood Feast wasn't like as well known, didn't have a wide release, didn't get a following until much later. But this movie, I think everybody knew about it. And yeah, what it did for horror will never be forgotten. It's a huge impact on the horror genre. Very, very important movie to watch. If you're a horror fan, it's a must-see. You've got to see this movie. It's excellent. I highly recommend it. George A. Romero was a genius. Rest in peace. It's very sad he's no longer with us. His legacy will live on. This movie's a testament to what a great filmmaker he was. And it was one of his early movies, too. One of his very first. And he became known as the master of the zombie movies. I love his dead movies. And yeah, so yeah, well, that's Night of the Living Dead. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And here pretty soon, I'll probably review the sequel, Dawn of the Dead. Another great zombie movie. It takes place in a mall. Even stars Tom Savini as a mean biker, and Ken Foree, another one of the coolest horror protagonists up there with Ben from the first one. Excellent sequel, excellent zombie movie, one of the all-time best zombie movies ever made by far. I'd also get to Day of the Dead, which is the third. For a while, it was a trilogy. Then it wasn't until Land of the Dead came out, which I'll give that a review pretty soon. I really like the zombies in Day of the Dead. I think the makeup effects look a lot better. They looked a lot more rotted and decomposed, and I think the special effects are a lot better. It was great in gore, too. Probably the goriest of the three. And yeah, Land of the Dead is good, but I'll get to that later. I'll give it its own review. And I'll probably review the remake of the 1968 classic as well. This came out in 1990. It was actually directed by Tom Savini, who did all the makeup effects for a lot of my favorite horror movies, and even had a minor role in the original Dawn of the Dead, so it's kind of interesting. There's a pales in comparison to the original, but it's still worth checking out. But all in all, Night of the Living Dead from 1968, directed by horror master George A. Romero, is definitely worth checking out. And look out for one of the most shocking twist endings of all time. This is one of the first horror movies to have a really surprising twist. Really surprising that you won't see coming. Just like, wow, I can't believe they went that route. So I won't give it away in case you haven't seen it. I won't dare spoil it, but you'll know what I mean when you see the movie. So pop it in and give it a watch. You will not be disappointed. And stay tuned for probably the next review I'll do in this series anyway. It'll be Dawn of the Dead. Alright guys, I'm Hellhound, and until next time.